The movie begins in an underground fighting circuit. Carter Ford is dominating the ring. And a bar owner named Frankie is keeping an eye on him. After Carter defeats his opponent, Elwood Dalton enters the ring. Carter recognizes him and rejects to fight, thus Dalton receives the money without having to fight. Outside, a man stabs Dalton after losing $500 in the fight, but when he realizes Dalton is unfazed, he flees. Frankie approaches Dalton while he takes care of his wound, explaining that she owns a roadhouse pub named the Roadhouse in the Florida hamlet of Glass Key. She offers Dalton to work for her as a bouncer. While he is initially hesitant to join, he eventually agrees because he has no other options in life. Dalton arrives at Glass Key. He meets Charlie, a teenage bookstore owner, and her father, Stephen. They provide Dalton a free book and direct him to the Roadhouse. He arrives and greets Billy and Laura before beginning work. Dalton sees Billy and the other male employees deal with boisterous customers at night. Moments later, a biker gang led by Del appears and begins to harass the workers and customers. Dalton attempts to talk quietly with Del, but he just antagonizes him. He gets outside and approaches the gang's bikes to entice them out before egging Del on. He threatens to kill Dalton until the man strikes him and knocks out all the bikers. Dalton then drives the entire gang to the hospital himself. On his way out, he is admonished by a doctor named Ellie for bringing them there because they take priority over more deserving patients. He charms her, and she caters to his wounds. Frankie informs Dalton that there is a crocodile nearby when he is sleeping in a boat on the lake. Dalton has dreams while he dreams about his final UFC battle. Del and his associates arrive on a yacht owned by Mafia boss Ben Brandt, for whom they work. They tell him about Dalton, and how he took over the floor with them. Brandt tells them to get rid of Dalton by any means necessary, seeing him as a threat to his town business. Dalton quickly learns that the villagers recognize him, and other thugs back off when they see him. He teaches Billy and the other guys how to deal with aggressive customers. Dalton points out one person with a concealed weapon and disarms him before kicking him out. Dalton is walking home from work when Del and his thugs try to run him over in Del's girlfriend's truck. They manage to push Dalton off the bridge, but he survives. When he arrives home, Del is waiting for him with a gun. Dalton battles him once more, knocking him into the sea. Despite Dalton's efforts to save Del, the crocodile eats Del first. Dalton eventually learns about the criminal activity going on in town from Charlie. After Dalton leaves the bookstore, a couple of Brandt's thugs try to force him go with them, but he rips the fingers off the one holding a gun at him. Brandt discovers that Dalton is difficult to defeat, a fact that even his imprisoned criminal father Gerald understands. Gerald calls his most vicious and hardened goon, Knox, and instructs him to go to Glass Key and deal with Dalton. This occurs after Knox has an affair with a married woman, walks into a street in Italy completely nude, attacks a man for his jacket, and sets a store on fire. When Knox gets to Brandt's house, he informs him that his father hired him, which causes some dissatisfaction among Brandt and his fellow thugs. Dalton goes on a date with Ellie, who takes her ex's boat into the water. She informs Dalton that she knows of his background, which he has attempted to keep hidden from everyone. He tries to leave Ellie, but she persuades him to stay, and they kiss. Later, Dalton is discovered by Sheriff Big Dick and his corrupt cops. The sheriff orders and warns Dalton to leave the town, but he resists. The cops then begin to abuse Dalton, with Dick preparing to execute him until Ellie drives up and slaps him. She brings Dalton with her and tells him that Dick is her father. Moreover, he is working with Brandt. Ellie then just informs Dalton that he needs to leave town. That night at the Roadhouse, Brandt approaches Dalton. He begins to abuse him about his past in the UFC. It turns out that Dalton left because he murdered his opponent in the ring even after the official called the fight, and Dalton has been troubled by this ever since. After Brandt departs, Knox enters and starts chaos. He beats Billy and the other guys, forcing Dalton to step in. Knox proves to be a challenge for Dalton, but Knox is taken aback when Dalton gets back on his feet after a beating. Ellie arrives at the scene to offer medical assistance. As Dalton begins to leave town, he notices the bookstore on fire, which was set by Brandt's thugs Sam and Vince. Dalton is informed that Charlie and Stephen are in the hospital but are alive. He finds Vince, who confronts him with a gun until Dalton punches his throat, causing his trachea to collapse and eventually suffocates. While disposing of the body, Dalton notices Mo, a member of Del's group who is the least corrupt of them all. He informs Dalton about a meeting Brandt and his thugs will have early the next day. Dalton goes by the water and discovers one of Dick's crooked deputies loading a large case of money onto a boat. He knocks the constable unconscious and leaves Vince's body there to blame him for his death. The sheriff finds Dalton and tells him that Brandt has kidnapped Ellie. Dalton arrives at Brandt's yacht and sees Dick with him, causing him to conclude that Dick purposefully enticed him aboard. However, Brandt acknowledges that he truly did kidnap Ellie. Before the goons can surround him, Dalton burns up the boat he arrived on, which belonged to Ellie's ex, to disorient everyone. As a result, the yacht begins to sink, and Dalton beats the heck out of the bad guys before locating Ellie. She and Dalton burst through the window and make their way out. Knox arrives in a skiff boat and attempts to finish off Dalton, while Brandt captures Ellie and takes her to a motorboat. Dalton makes it aboard the motorboat, while Knox falls into the lake. Dalton battles Brandt, causing the motorboat to crash close outside the roadhouse, launching Brandt onto the roof. Meanwhile, Knox climbs out of the water and steals a truck, which he crashes into the roadhouse. When Brandt orders Knox to finally kill Dalton, Knox snaps his neck. Dalton and Knox then fight in round 2, with Knox once again showing to be a beast, until Dalton has the upper hand and Knox knocks out by stabbing him with wooden shards till he is down. Dick appears and offers to cover for Dalton in gratitude for saving Ellie. She and Dalton exchange one final look before he departs. Frankie, Billy, Laura, and the others then attempt to clean up the collapse of the roadhouse while remaining open for business. Just as Dalton is about to leave, he goes by the bookstore and sees Charlie and Steven once. He wishes them farewell and delivers them the cash bag he grabbed from the deputy. Dalton then boards a bus to his next destination,